The music was still playing, but the room felt empty. Empty chairs, half-finished drinks, laughter that had already faded into the walls. He stood there, holding a smile that had nowhere to go, wondering how a full house could disappear so fast. That's when she looked at him, gentle and certain, and said the words that would change everything. Now it's just us. Sometimes kindness doesn't arrive with applause. Sometimes it shows up quietly, after everyone else has gone home. Before we dive into this story, take a second to support the channel. If stories like this move you, inspire you, or remind you of the good still out there, please subscribe, like this video, and leave a comment below. It helps the channel grow and keeps these stories coming. You're watching your channel name, and we're glad you're here. The party was supposed to be the highlight of Mark's year. He had just turned 32. New job, new city, new apartment. He didn't know many people yet, but he wanted to feel like he belonged somewhere, so he planned a small housewarming party. Nothing fancy, a few friends from work, some neighbors, music, snacks, drinks, and the hope that this place would finally feel like home. At first, it did. People showed up with smiles and bottles of wine. The living room buzzed with conversation. Someone complimented the view from the balcony. Someone else asked about his job. Mark felt lighter than he had in months. For the first time since moving, he wasn't eating dinner alone. Then, slowly, things shifted. One guest checked their phone and said they had an early morning. Another said traffic was bad and they should head out. A couple left together, promising to hang out soon. The music kept playing, but the room grew quieter with every goodbye. Mark told himself it was normal. Parties end. People get tired. No big deal. But when the clock hit 10 and he looked around to see only one person still there, the familiar ache crept in. Her name was Anna. She wasn't someone he knew well. A friend of a coworker. They had talked briefly earlier about movies and favorite takeout places. She had an easy smile and a calm way of listening, like she wasn't waiting for her turn to talk. Mark felt embarrassed. He started apologizing without meaning to. "Sorry," he said, forcing a laugh. "I guess I'm not very good at throwing parties." Anna looked around at the empty cups and quiet room. Then she looked back at him. "Why are you sorry?" she asked. "Well," he shrugged, "everyone left." She smiled softly and said, "I didn't. That was when she said it. Now it's just us." Those words landed gently, but they stayed. Mark turned down the music. He started collecting empty plates, his shoulders slumped. Anna stopped him. "Sit," she said. "You worked hard on tonight." So they sat, two people on opposite ends of a couch that had been meant for many. At first, the silence felt loud. Mark worried she was only staying out of politeness, that she was counting the minutes until she could leave too. He felt exposed, like his loneliness was suddenly visible. Then Anna asked a simple question. Was it hard, moving here? The question caught him off guard. Not do you like it here, or what do you do for fun? But was it hard? Mark nodded before he realized it. The words came out slower than he expected. "Yeah," he said, "harder than I thought." He told her about leaving, his hometown. About friends who promised to visit but never did. About weekends that felt too quiet. About how this party was his way of telling himself he was doing okay. Anna listened. She didn't interrupt. She didn't try to fix anything. She just listened. Then she shared her own story. She talked about moving after a breakup that left her questioning everything. About feeling invisible in crowded rooms. About learning that being surrounded by people doesn't always mean you feel seen. Time passed without either of them noticing. They laughed about bad jobs and awkward first days. They talked about family traditions and childhood memories. They discovered they both loved late-night diners and old songs that made no sense. At some point, Mark realized something surprising. He didn't feel lonely anymore. The apartment that had felt too big now felt warm. The quiet that once scared him now felt peaceful. Not because the room was full, but because the moment was. When Anna finally stood up to leave, it was close to midnight. "Thank you," Mark said, his voice sincere, "for staying." She shrugged, but her eyes were kind. "Sometimes," she said, "people don't need a crowd. They just need one person." They exchanged numbers. She left with a hug that felt steady and real. After the door closed, Mark didn't feel the usual emptiness. He felt hopeful. In the weeks that followed, life didn't magically change. Work was still stressful. Some nights were still quiet. But something inside Mark was different. He started noticing small moments more. The barista who remembered his name, the neighbor who held the elevator, the co-worker who asked how his weekend really was, and Mark started doing something new. He stayed. When someone lingered after a meeting, he didn't rush off. When a coworker looked overwhelmed, he asked if they wanted to talk. When a neighbor mentioned being new, he invited them for coffee. He learned that kindness isn't about grand gestures, it's about presence. Months later, Mark hosted another small gathering. Fewer people this time, less pressure, more intention. And when the night wound down and people began to leave, he wasn't afraid. Because he knew something he hadn't known before. Even if everyone left, connection could still remain. Anna became a regular part of his life. Not because of romance or obligation, but because of shared understanding. They showed up for each other. They stayed when things were quiet. They listened. One night, sitting on the same couch where it all started, Mark told her something he had never said out loud. "That night," he said, "when you stayed, it mattered more than you know." Anna smiled, the same gentle smile. "I know," she said. "That's why I stayed." Kindness doesn't always look like saving the day. Sometimes it looks like sitting on a couch in a quiet apartment, saying, "I'm here," choosing not to leave when it would be easier to go. In a world that rushes from moment to moment, kindness slows down. It notices. It stays. And that kind of kindness can change a life. So if you ever find yourself at a party where the room empties, or in a moment where someone feels forgotten, remember this story. You don't have to do much. Just stay. Because sometimes staying is everything, and you never know whose life might change because you chose kindness when everyone else walked away.